My wife taught her some respect. Kira smiled thin. Poisonous. Pleased. The words echoed through the church hall, slicing through the chatter like a blade through silk. Balloons swayed above the dessert table, their ribbons trembling as if they felt the shame burning on my skin. Every head turned toward me, an old woman with a purple bruise blooming across her face, standing under a banner that read, Happy 71st. Hattie. My name is Henrietta Hattie Cole. I am 71 years old. And I walked into my own birthday party carrying the proof of my son's betrayal on my skin. They thought I'd stay silent. They thought they'd won. But what they didn't know was, before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family, especially when the betrayal came from the people living under your own roof. Because what happened to me didn't start with that bruise. It started long before, with whispers, with rearranged rooms, with love slowly turning into ownership. The night before my husband Malcolm died, we sat on the porch swing he'd built with his own hands. The air smelled of rain and honeysuckle, and his voice was low, almost distant. This house will always be your peace, Hattie, he said, his thumb tracing lazy circles on my palm. Don't let anyone take it from you. I laughed softly then, thinking it was just one of his sentimental moods. I didn't know it would be the last promise he ever made to me. When he passed suddenly, in his sleep, the world turned silent. 43 years of partnership vanished overnight. The next morning, don't let anyone take it from you. His cup sat untouched, the steam curling into nothing. Don't let anyone take it from you. Cold sheets. 43 years of partnership vanished overnight. Danny. I made coffee for two before realizing I was alone. That's when I started to understand that grief has a smell burnt toast. He stood in the kitchen doorway with that nervous smile of his. Mom, I'll stay for a while, he said. You shouldn't be here by yourself. He was always the kind, responsible one. Mom, I didn't argue. Having him home brought back a sense of rhythm, the sound of a door closing, a plate being set down, the hum of a car in the driveway. For a few months, my son. Mornings started with coffee on the porch, though easily swayed by stronger voices. I told myself it was enough, until the day he brought her home. Evenings ended with TV dinners and silence, but sharp once it settles. She was all gloss and confidence, the kind of woman who always looks like she's walking into a photo shoot. Her handshake was firm, her smile a little too white. Mrs. Cole, she said, her tone dripping charm. Danny talks about you all the time. That night, I made Malcolm's favorite dish, beef stew with cornbread on the side. Kira picked at her plate, then pushed it away gently. It's lovely, she said, but I try to avoid carbs after 6 p.m. Her laugh was light, polite, rehearsed. I smiled, though something in me tightened. Over the next months, Kira became a fixture in our home. Her heels clicked down my hallway like she already owned the place. She reorganized the spice rack for efficiency, swapped out Malcolm's plaid curtains for a more modern vibe, and began referring to my living room as our space. At first, I thought I was imagining things. She was pleasant enough on the surface, but I started to notice the small cuts beneath her compliments. This kitchen has so much potential, she'd say, brushing her manicured nails along the cabinets Malcolm built. It just needs someone with vision. Or when she'd look at the family photos on the mantel and murmur, so nostalgic. You really love holding on to the past, don't you? I didn't answer. Silence has always been my shield. But inside, I felt the first rip in something sacred. Danny was blind with affection. He laughed off her remarks, said she was just being helpful. I didn't push back. I'd spent decades swallowing discomfort for the sake of peace. That was my first mistake. When they got married, I stood in the back row of a small ceremony at a vineyard. Kira glowed in ivory satin, the picture of modern grace. I wanted to be happy for them. But the moment she slipped her arm through Danny's and looked at me over her shoulder, I caught that glint in her eye, the one that said, "I've arrived." After the honeymoon, Danny told me it would be temporary. They'd stay at my house just until they saved enough for their own. Of course, temporary stretched into forever. And with every passing week, my home became less recognizable. It began with the little things: my framed wedding photo moved from the hallway to the attic to make space for updated decor. Then Malcolm's recliner disappeared one morning without a word. When I asked, Kira smiled. It didn't fit the aesthetic. "Mrs. Cole, I donated it. You'll love the new setup, it feels more open." That night, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the empty spot where Malcolm's chair had been, trying not to cry. Kira's friends started visiting every weekend. They were loud, perfumed, and curious. I'd come downstairs and conversations would stop mid-sentence. Once, I caught one of them whispering, "She's still here," as if I were some lingering ghost. Danny would pat my shoulder, embarrassed, and tell me not to mind them. "They just don't know you yet," he'd say, but they didn't want to know me. And neither did Kira. I began to feel the house shifting, not physically, but energetically. The warmth it once held drained away, replaced by something cold, sterile. Even the air felt different. One night, as I was cleaning up the kitchen, I heard Kira on the phone in the next room. Her voice was low, urgent. "Yes, the appraisal should come through next week," she said. "No, the owner doesn't need to be involved. I have access." I froze, the dish towel still in my hands. Appraisal, owner, access. I wanted to believe I'd misheard. I wanted to believe she wasn't talking about my home. But when I walked into the room, she ended the call and smiled. All sweetness. "Just work stuff," she said. "Don't look so serious." Hattie. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, listening to the old house creak, the wind pushing against the shutters, wondering if I'd already lost what Malcolm had built for us. A week later, the wind pushing against the shutters. The branch manager who'd known our family for years, he looked uncomfortable, fiddling with his tie. "Mrs. Cole," he said carefully. "Cole, the email looked like it came from you." But the wind pushing against the shutters. So I held it. My stomach dropped. The tone was off. He nodded, printed it, just in case. When I saw the name in the email signature, Kira Vale Cole, my hand started to shake. I thanked Tom and left the bank clutching that paper like a weapon I didn't yet know how to use. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at it under the yellow light. My coffee had gone cold. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the tick of Malcolm's old clock on the wall. The crickets screamed into the night. I thanked Tom and left the bank clutching that paper like a weapon I didn't yet know how to use. Kira's laughter echoed from behind a closed door, bright, careless, and somewhere down the hallway, victorious. I didn't know it then. I just hadn't realized what kind of war I was about to fight. The next morning, but that was the moment I stopped being afraid. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the tick of Malcolm's old clock on the wall. I made myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table with that printed email still lying there. I woke before sunrise. The proof was small, a simple forged request, but it was the first solid crack in Kira's perfect mask. The copper pots Malcolm used to polish every Sunday now hung dull and unused. The air smelled like synthetic vanilla from Kira's candles instead of brewed coffee and cinnamon toast. I looked around the kitchen, and so had I. When Danny came downstairs, outside, hair still damp from the shower, my home had changed. But then I heard Kira's voice drifting down the hallway. "Don't be late. The clients expect us by 9. That tone, half command, half concern, made my stomach twist. I folded the printout, slid it into my recipe book, and said nothing. I needed to be sure. Over the following weeks, little things began to pile up. My grocery bill doubled, though I barely ate. The pantry filled with imported oils and gluten-free snacks I didn't buy. Kira's friends started hosting brunch meetings in my living room. Once, I overheard one of them joke, "So when's the remodel? You'll flip this place for a fortune." They laughed, clinking glasses of mimosas. Unaware, I was standing in the hallway listening. Danny noticed none of it or pretended not to. When I tried to bring it up, he smiled, that tired, placating smile. "Mom, Kira's just trying to make the house nicer. You've done so much for me. Let her do something for you. Kira's just trying to make the house nicer." For me, that phrase was a lie people used right before they took something from you. Then came the rules. A note taped to the fridge one evening read, "House courtesy guidelines. No cooking after 7:00 p.m. Lingering smells disrupt sleep. No loud TV in common areas. Please knock before entering the living room." It was signed Kira. Not a joke. Not a conversation. A decree. I tore the paper down. But the next day, no loud TV in common areas. That night, I sat in the dark at the edge of my bed. My hands trembled as I turned Malcolm's old watch on my wrist. He'd always said time reveals everything. Kira's just trying to make the house nicer. A laminated version replaced it. One afternoon, I wondered how long it would take for Danny to see what was happening. Voice sharp this time. It'll push things faster. Voice sharp this time. The courts will handle the rest. My blood ran cold. I stepped into the hallway, and the floor creaked beneath my feet. She froze, then spun around. My blood ran cold. "Oh, didn't see you there? Hattie. Oh." I was just scheduling something for work, but I saw her pupils dilate for a split-second fear. She knew I'd heard, smiling as if she hadn't just plotted my removal. 3 days later, I said nothing. Polite smiles. Clipboards in hand. A man and a woman. "Ma'am, we're from Adult Protective Services." The humiliation burned through me like acid. I invited them in, just following up on a report about potential self-neglect. They asked if I managed my finances, if I took medication, if I'd ever fallen at home. I offered them coffee, handed over my medical records, steady-voiced, my checkbook ledger, my utility bills. They apologized. It's clear there's been a mistake. By the end, it was a setup, but it wasn't a mistake. I locked the door. When they left, my hands shaking. Upstairs, I could hear Kira humming softly as she folded laundry, as if nothing had happened. That was the night I opened the old mantel clock Malcolm had once tinkered with endlessly. Inside, behind a panel, was a tiny black lens. A camera. My breath caught. My husband, the man who planned everything, had installed it long ago for security after a break-in scare. The wiring was dusty but intact, connected to a small SD card. I turned it in my hand, the metal warm from my fingers. And then, for the first time in months, connected to a small SD card, I turned it in my hand. I smiled. From that moment, not out of joy but resolve. Phone calls, The late-night whispers between Kira and Danny that slipped through the floorboards. Conversations I didn't confront. That was the difference between panic and power. Days bled into weeks. One night, around midnight, I heard them arguing. Kira's voice was tense. "We can't wait forever. If she moves to a senior residence..." Around midnight, Danny sounded exhausted. "She's my mother." "Kira." Kira's tone turned syrupy. "I know, babe. But think about our future. The baby. The baby." My breath caught. Could it be? Then, a beat later, I heard Danny's voice break. "You're sure?" Kira hesitated just long enough for the lie to take shape. "Of course I'm sure." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing what her next move would be. A grandchild, real or not, was the ultimate weapon of guilt. The next morning, she appeared in the kitchen glowing like a sunrise. "Good morning, Hattie," she chirped. "I just wanted to let you know I'm pregnant." My spoon froze midway to my coffee. "Congratulations," I said flatly. Her smile faltered. She expected excitement, tears, surrender. She got none. Later, I called my brother Judah. He lived an hour away and had never been fond of Kira. When I told him about the fake appraisal and the APS visit, his voice turned sharp. "You think she's stopping there?" "No, Hattie. She's escalating. She wants that deed." He was right. Every time I walked through my own home, I felt like a stranger wandering through a showroom. My framed photos were gone, replaced by abstract prints. My kitchen towels had been swapped for linen sets embroidered with V and D, Vale and Danny. My identity was being erased inch by inch. The breaking point came 2 weeks before my birthday. Kira announced a small gathering to celebrate me. Except I wasn't part of the planning. She coordinated everything through Danny. Even booked the church hall where I'd sung in the choir for decades. "You'll love it," she said one morning, cutting fruit with surgical precision. "It's time for something fresh, modern. You've earned it." Her words sounded generous. But there was that tone again, sweetened control. The night before the party, I walked into my room and found Kira standing by my dresser, holding Malcolm's wooden jewelry box, the one he'd given me on our 25th anniversary. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't even flinch. "Just looking. These pieces are outdated. Hattie, you could sell them. Free up space. Put it down." My voice was calm, but my pulse thundered. She smirked. "You don't need to get upset. Accidents happen when people your age get emotional." I stepped forward and took the box from her hands. "Get out of my room." Her eyes went cold. "This isn't your room," she said softly. "It's our house." I saw it then, the truth. She'd been dressing in manners and smiles. This wasn't about family. It was about conquest. She shoved me. It wasn't hard, but I stumbled, my hip slamming against the dresser. The corner caught my cheekbone. Pain exploded, sharp and hot. I fell to the floor, tasting metal. Kira gasped theatrically. "Oh my God. Hatton, you fell." She didn't offer a hand. She just walked out, leaving me there on the rug. The jewelry box overturned beside me. I pressed a trembling hand to my face. Blood. That night, as I cleaned the wound and stared at the bruising bloom around my eye, something inside me crystallized. They could call me weak. They could call me crazy. But they would never take my home. The next day, I would walk into that party not as a victim, but as evidence. They thought I was done. But what they didn't know was, I'd already started building my case. The bruise around my eye darkened overnight, turning from plum to black. Every time I caught my reflection, I saw not just pain, but proof. Kira thought she'd won that I'd hide, ashamed, too afraid to expose her. She didn't know the kind of woman I'd been before I was a widow. I'd managed surgeons, negotiated budgets, and outlasted boardroom politics. I knew how to document, to time, to wait. That morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She hummed as she arranged hors d'oeuvres on a silver platter, smiling over her shoulder. "We'll leave in 2 hours. Hattie, make sure you wear something nice. It's your big day." The word "your" came out like a threat. Danny appeared behind her, his hand on her shoulder. Oblivious. "You excited?" "Mom, 71. That's a milestone." I forced a smile. "Oh, I'm ready." But inside, I was counting the hours not to the party, but to the unveiling. The guests began to arrive at the church hall around 5. Pastor Ruth greeted everyone warmly, her voice echoing under the high ceiling. Balloons floated above linen tables. Kira had outdone herself. Catering trays, floral centerpieces, a cake taller than cents. I recognized maybe half the people there. The rest were her friends' influencers, colleagues, people with sharp smiles and sharper eyes. When I stepped inside, colleagues, a hush spread like a wave, no matter how much concealer I used. Conversations faltered. Glasses froze midair. Kira's face didn't flinch. She simply glided toward me, that same polished calm masking the storm underneath. "Oh, you poor thing," she said sweetly. "She tripped this morning. I told her not to climb on chairs. But she insists she's still 20. A ripple of polite laughter forced. Awkward swept through the room. Danny stood nearby, uncertain, then said it. My wife taught her some respect. The room froze. Kata smiled. Thin, poisonous, pleased. I felt my throat tighten, but I stayed silent. Let them laugh. Let them judge. The truth would speak soon enough. Then I saw Judah, my brother, walking in from the back, his presence like a thundercloud. He looked at me, then at Danny, then at Kira. "You proud of that, boy?" he said, his voice cold. "You just announced to a room full of people that you let your wife hit your mother." The murmurs started immediately. Danny stammered, "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" Judah's tone sliced the air. "Because from where I stand, it looks exactly like that." Kira tried to step in. "Mr. Cole, please. Don't please me." Judah snapped. "I've seen your type before. All smiles and claws." I wanted to stop him to keep things from exploding, but part of me needed this confrontation. It was the spark to ignite what I'd prepared. "Don't please me." Sharp and unshakable. All smiles and claws. It was the spark to ignite what I'd prepared. "Sorry to interrupt." Her expression calm as she approached the table near the microphone. Aisha arrived, then my attorney. "But I believe Mrs." Her voice carrying easily across the hall. Kira's smile faltered. "This isn't the time." "It is." Aisha interrupted smoothly. "Because this isn't just a birthday party. It's also the day certain legal matters come to light." "Sorry to interrupt." Aisha nodded to someone near the sound booth. From a speaker, a voice played Tom Nguyen's, steady and factual. "It's also the day certain legal matters come to light. We received a request for a full property valuation for the Cole residence, submitted under the name Kira Vale Cole. The email also asked about transfer procedures in the event the owner was deemed incapacitated." Gasps rippled through the room. Danny's face drained of color. "That's a lie," Kira said sharply. her tone finally cracking. I never. Before she could finish, another sound filled the room, a click, followed by static. And then a video projection flickered to life on the wall. The grainy footage from Malcolm's old mantel clock camera, the hallway, the jewelry box, the shove. The entire room went dead silent. The image of me falling, hitting the dresser, crumpling to the floor, replayed in perfect clarity. Then Kira's voice from the video, cold and clear. This isn't your room. This is our house. Someone gasped audibly. Someone else whispered, crumpling to the floor, replayed in perfect clarity. Danny stumbled backward. Oh my God. As if the floor had given way. But no words came. Her lips trembled, her face drained of color, then flushed dark. I stepped forward, steady, holding the microphone. You said I fell. Kira, you said it was an accident. But I've spent a lifetime working with records, with evidence. I don't deal in stories. I deal in facts. Her eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. But the walls had closed in. And this was only the beginning. Kira's lips parted, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted to Danny, then to the crowd, scanning for anyone to believe her version. That video, it's edited, she said finally, her voice trembling but her posture defiant. She's been confused for months. You can't trust her. That word again. Confused. It hung in the air like a taunt. A few people exchanged glances. Others stared at her in disbelief. Then Judge Lila Barrett, my retired neighbor and once family friend, stepped forward from her table. Her silver hair glowed under the fluorescent lights, and her voice cut through the murmurs. That footage is admissible. The device belongs to the homeowner, and there's no expectation of privacy in shared living spaces. So unless you want to argue under oath, I suggest you stop talking. Mrs. Vale. Kira froze. Her silver hair glowed under the fluorescent lights. Aisha lifted another folder from her briefcase, her voice calm and deliberate. She hadn't expected resistance from that direction. Kira froze. Aisha lifted another folder from her briefcase. We've documented several communications emails. In addition to the video, Cole is mentally unfit. The call was traced to your number. And a phone inquiry to Adult Protective Services, falsely reporting Mrs. Kira's face went red, then pale again. Falsely reporting Mrs. Someone must have used my phone. A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the guests, then pale again. Kira. Danny swayed as if the floor had shifted beneath him. That's not true. What is she talking about? Aisha didn't blink, then pale again. Disparate. Baby. Kira reached for his arm. I did all this for us. She's twisting everything. Danny swayed as if the floor had shifted beneath him. I did all this for us. Holding his phone high. Start a family. For you. Then pale again. With what? And a text thread projected on the overhead monitor messages between Kira and a contact named M. He tapped the screen. M. Finder's fee still stands if you close by Sept. Harridan. Censure. Kira. We're close. Kira. The room went dead quiet. Danny's voice broke. You were planning to sell the house. Kira's hands shook. No, Danny, it's not what you think. Then what is it? The room went dead quiet. The old lady won't last another month here. Trembling. About that. Voice louder now. The crack in his voice sliced through the silence. Kira turned frantic. Cornered. It looks like you used me to steal my mother's home. For our child. Cornered. The room went dead quiet. You're overreacting. Aisha exchanged a glance with Judah. About that. Child. We subpoenaed your medical records this morning. Kira. About that. She reached into her folder again and placed a thin envelope on the table. Gasps again. Someone muttered. Jesus Christ. There is no pregnancy. The lab test you took last week wasn't prenatal. It was cosmetic pre-screening for a liposuction procedure. The facade cracked completely. Jesus Christ. Kira's entire face drained of color. About everything. Danny. Please. Because from where I'm standing, you lied to me. Tears finally spilling too late. I did it because I love you. I did it because I love you. No, I said quietly, taking the microphone again. You did it because you love ownership. The words hung heavy. Kira turned toward me, eyes blazing. You've always hated me. You never gave me a chance. I didn't flinch. You never wanted one. You wanted a deed. Then Aisha unfolded one last document and set it under the spotlight, the trust papers Malcolm had signed years ago. Her voice was calm, measured, cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. This property was placed in an irrevocable family trust, granting Mrs. Cole life estate rights. Any coercion, manipulation, or attempt to remove her voids all future inheritance. In that case, the property transfers to the Bluegrass Women's Literacy Fund immediately. Kira blinked, trying to process. That's insane. It can't. It's legally binding, Aisha said coolly. Your husband inherits nothing if coercion occurs. You inherit even less. The color drained from Danny's face as the full meaning hit him. Dad knew, he whispered. He saw this coming. Yes, I said softly. He saw this coming, he whispered. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. He always did. You think this is over, muttering. You'll regret humiliating me like this. Pastor Ruth stepped between her and the exit. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. Kira Hattie Cole, she said formally, her voice shaking only slightly. You've been served with a temporary restraining order, effective immediately. You're not to approach Mrs. Cole or her property within 200 yards. Kata stopped cold. You called the court. I called justice. Pastor Ruth said simply. Laughter small, nervous, incredulous, rippled through the guests. Judah folded his arms. You can go now. You start by seeing clearly. Kira's eyes darted between us. Wild and wet. She wanted to scream. But there was nothing left to say. Wild and wet. Heels clicking furiously on the tile. Finally, she pushed past Pastor Ruth and left the hall. Danny stood frozen. Silence fell like snow. He turned to me, voice breaking. Mom, I don't know how to fix this. I looked at him for a long time, my chest heavy with something deeper than anger. Mom, I don't know how to fix this. He nodded, tears spilling freely now. Behind him, the law will take care of the rest. He nodded. Aisha closed her folder. After that, everything else falls into place. The guests began to leave, one by one, murmuring apologies, disbelief, shame. When the last door closed, the only sounds left were the hum of the lights and the creak of the church floor beneath our feet. Judah placed a steady hand on my shoulder. You did it. Hattie. I looked up at the high windows. You did it. Judah placed a steady hand on my shoulder. I said softly. Malcolm did. He just taught me how to fight quietly. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the first reckoning. The next 48 hours felt like living inside a slow explosion, silent from the outside. But deep down, By Monday morning, the party scandal had spread across the church circuit. The next 48 hours felt like living inside a slow explosion, silent from the outside, deafening within. Words like elder abuse and fraudulent transfer started circling my name, but not in shame. For once, deafening within. She never was. For once, words like elder abuse and fraudulent transfer started circling my name, but not in shame. Even the local paper's community buzz column. A black SUV pulled up in front of the house. They weren't whispering about me. They were whispering for me. Shoulders slumped, face gray with exhaustion. Behind him, Kira, still in designer sunglasses. Just after I'd finished watering the garden, posture unbroken. She looked like a woman walking into a negotiation, not an apology. Danny stepped out, posture unbroken, hair immaculate. I could hear a cicada rattling somewhere in the trees. The same sound Malcolm used to say reminded him of the clock in his heart. I didn't move from the porch. "You have no right to keep him from me," she said, sticky with that late summer humidity Kentucky does best. "This restraining order, this circus, you'll regret humiliating us." I sipped my iced tea and set the glass down on the railing. Kira stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Kira. I sipped my iced tea and set the glass down on the railing. Danny looked up, his eyes hollow. Kira stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "Please. I just want to talk." "Then talk," I said. He ran a hand through his hair. Kira stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. I don't even know where to start. I should have believed you. I thought God. I thought she loved me." Kira scoffed. "You think this is love? She's poisoned you against me. She's old. I thought God. She's poisoned you against me. And she," my voice slicing through hers, voice low but sharp. She froze. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was the silence that followed. Either way, the power shifted right there, midair, between us. "You think age is weakness," I said. "You think patience means submission? You've mistaken discipline for fragility. But I spent 30 years keeping a hospital running, managing men twice your size and half your brain. You don't scare me." Kira Valley. "You never did." She blinked fast, rage and panic swirling under her composure. "You're pathetic. You think you can win because you embarrassed me in a church." "No," I said quietly. "You don't scare me." Behind me, the front door creaked open. Aisha stepped out, briefcase in hand, her tone clinical as a surgeon. "We filed the civil petition this morning. Attempt coercion, fraudulent misrepresentation, elder endangerment, and perjury in a sworn statement to Adult Protective Services. The county judge has signed a protection extension and ordered a freeze on all joint assets pending review." Kira's mouth opened, then closed. You can't." "Actually," Aisha said, "we can." Danny looked at her, then at me, and something inside him finally cracked. He dropped his head, his shoulders shaking. "I'm so sorry. Mom," he whispered, "for everything, for not seeing it, for letting her hurt you." I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't touch him. "You don't have to apologize. Son, you just have to wake up." Kira's control finally shattered. She stepped forward, voice rising, shrill with fury. "You think you're better than me? You old witch, you ruined my life." I didn't move. "You did that when you tried to steal mine." She lunged just one step, but Aisha's voice rang out. Crisp. "Don't. There's a police car half a block away, waiting for this exact reaction." Kira stopped. Her chest heaved. Her eyes darted wildly around the yard, realizing the trap had closed completely. "Fine," she spat. "Take your stupid house. Rot in it alone. That's what you're good at, being alone." She turned, stalking back toward the car. But as she opened the door, Judah's truck pulled up to the curb, cutting her path off. He got out slowly, hands in his pockets, gaze cold. "You forgot something," he said. She glared. "What now?" He tossed a manila envelope onto the hood of her SUV. "Cease and desist. You try to contact her, Danny, or anyone tied to this trust again, you'll meet me in court." "Not her." Kara's face twisted, half sneer, half shock. "You people are insane." "Maybe," Judah said, stepping closer. "But we're organized." She shoved into the car, slammed the door, and sped away, tires shrieking against the asphalt. The sound faded into the trees, leaving only the soft hiss of cicadas and the smell of summer heat on brick. Danny stayed standing in the yard, tears streaking down his face. "I don't even know who I am anymore," he said. "Then start over," I told him. "Without lies this time." He nodded, trembling, then sank onto the porch steps. For a long moment, we sat in silence. The kind that's not awkward but sacred. A silence that feels earned. When he finally spoke, it was barely a whisper. "Dad saw her, didn't he? That's why he wrote those trust terms." I smiled faintly, staring out at the fig tree Malcolm had planted 30 years ago. "Your father always built things to last, especially protection." The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of rain and magnolia. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Aisha closed her briefcase and turned to leave. "I'll have the court date soon. We're in good shape." "Thank you," I said quietly. She smiled. "You did the hard part, Hattie. You kept your head when everyone wanted you to break." When she drove away, Judah lingered by the steps. "You okay?" he asked. I exhaled. "Better than I've been in years." He nodded slowly. "You did right. Sis, you didn't just save the house. You saved your voice." As the sun began to set, Danny stood and walked toward the fig tree, touching its trunk gently. "She'll never come back, will she?" I looked at the horizon, where light met shadow. Maybe not here. But people like her always circle back somewhere. The difference is I'm ready next time. The wind shifted again, warm and final. The porch creaked softly beneath me, like an old friend sighing in relief. For the first time since Malcolm died, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. I felt home. But as I glanced at the empty road where Kira's car had vanished, a strange calm settled over me. She was too proud to disappear quietly. And somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't the last chapter. It was just the pause before the echo. A strange calm settled over me. The house fell silent again, but it wasn't the silence of fear. It was peace. For the first time in months, I could hear my own breath without the echo of footsteps behind it. The smell of coffee lingered longer in the air. The walls seemed to exhale with me. But peace never lasts long in families like mine. It always hums with unfinished chords. On Wednesday morning, a thick white envelope arrived in the mailbox. No return address. My name typed neatly in block letters. Mrs. Hattie Cole. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a business card. The letter read, "We apologize for the confusion surrounding your property. The previous broker is no longer with our firm. However, if you ever decide to sell, our offer still stands. We can match the prior valuation, or better. M. Harridan and Associates." The name made my stomach twist. She wasn't gone. Just rebranding the hunt. I sat at the kitchen table, tracing the card's embossed logo with my thumb. The same hands that had fed my child, buried my husband, signed every paper that saved this home. They trembled. Not from fear, but from recognition. She was coming again. Not with fists this time, but with lawyers and signatures, with charm and deceit polished anew. I looked toward the mantel clock. Malcolm's old camera hidden inside it still blinked, steady and faithful. You always did think ahead. Didn't you? I whispered. Later that day, Aisha stopped by with updates. Preliminary hearings are set. Kira hasn't filed a counterclaim yet. But if Harridan's still in play, expect something soon. They don't give up easy. I smiled faintly. Neither do I. Aisha studied me. You planning something? Hattie. I took the business card, slipped it into a folder already labeled Future Evidence, and closed it with a soft click. Just taking notes, I said. That's what good administrators do. That night, as the sky turned the color of bruised peaches, I sat on the porch swing and listened to the crickets. A faint breeze rustled through the fig leaves Malcolm had planted decades ago. I'm not done yet, I murmured to the empty air. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled again, quieter this time, but closer than before. People think revenge is one loud explosion. They're wrong. Sometimes it's a clock ticking in an empty room, waiting for the right second to strike. And I was still counting. If you've ever been made to feel powerless in your own family, you know that silence can cut deeper than words. I spent years letting others speak over me until I learned that quiet doesn't mean weak. So tell me where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand your ground against betrayal. Because stories like mine aren't rare, they're just whispered too softly. And trust me, this story isn't over. Not while there are still people who think love means control. Stay tuned. The reckoning's only begun.